To make a basic bread, you are going to add a packet of yeast into your strong white flour along with your sugar and your salt. Make sure that you keep your salt and your yeast separate because that can inhibit the growth of the yeast. You then need to add some hand hot water and bring it together and knead it. So we use strong flour because it contains more gluten, which is the protein that we find in the flour, and that provides the structure to the dough. It's shaped in springy coils, and so we knead it to stretch those coils out and bring them so that they're in line. The yeast is a living thing, so we need to rehydrate it, and that's the reason why we use hand hot water, because it's optimum growing temperature. You can't use boiling water because that would kill the yeast. And the sugar is there to feed the yeast so that the yeast can start producing carbon dioxide, which will then get trapped within the gluten structure within the bread as it's left to rise. When the dough springs back up when pressed, that's when you can stop kneading. The dough needs to be left to prove in a warm place, and this is where the yeast ferments and allows the bread to rise, and it gives that airy texture. So as the yeast respires, it produces carbon dioxide, which inflates the bread. Once the dough has doubled in size, that is when you need to knock it back, which is where you're reducing the size of the air bubbles that have been created. You can then flavour your bread. So once you've knocked it back, you can flavour your bread and you can fold in your fillings or your flavourings and then knead it into the dough before starting to shape. On a lightly floured work surface, you're going to shape your bread. So you might want to split your dough into different sections depending on what size roll you want. You might want to be specific and weigh each of the sections or the portions that you cut, so that there is accuracy and every bread roll is the same. And then if you watch the video, you'll be able to see a range of shapes being produced. Bake your bread rolls in the oven for about 10 to 15 minutes until golden brown and cooked. You'll know when they're cooked when you can turn them over and tap them on the bottom and they sound hollow.